So for lifting, something that you have to do, it's non-negotiable, it's very important that you test out all your colors for lifting. So here I have tested them by lifting afterwards, like after it has dried, and in some places immediately, like when the paint is wet, I lift it. So this is after the paper has dried. This is also after the paper has dried, but these are two different purples, so it's giving very different result. Here also you can see it has been lifted, but it still stained the paper. There is a difference in all the pigments of how much you can lift and how much will it stain. For example, here also you can see it was lifted, but it's not completely white. Like if you see just this much, it still is colored. So what you can lift is the pigment that sits on the surface, but what you cannot lift is when it stains the paper. Like here it has made the paper pink. Now all the extra pigment you can maybe lift, but otherwise it will stain the paper. I'll show you. The brush, for example, even if this has dried, I am going over it with a wet brush and I can lift it here. With the tissue I can lift it. Okay, so this is liftable, but still you can see it's not completely white. So wherever you need white, it's almost white, it's close to white, but not exactly white. When you see it in real life, you'll find it to have a little bit of a tint. It's looking lighter compared to the purple that is surrounding it, but it's not white like this. Same goes here also. You'll see, even if I merge it with this line, let's say, just to show you, see there is a difference between the white of outside and the white inside. It will not get completely lifted off. Lifting is a tool that you can use when you need it. It's not that you are using it as a main technique in the painting. Also, there will be times where you can, where you cannot lift. Like for example, this color and this color, it's mostly staining. So you cannot lift these. Like you can make it lighter, but you cannot depend on it to go completely white. Like for this one, you can almost get like complete white. I'm not sure if I can do it right now. See, it lifts very easily. It's still staining the paper, but you can lift a lot of it. And I'm able to lift a lot of it also because I'm putting in a lot of paint. I put very strong pigment. Just to show you, if I have this, it's the same color, this one, French ultramarine. But now if I try to lift this one, I can, because there is a lot of pigment to be lifted. But now if I keep going onto the lighter areas, like this one, it has a little less pigment compared to this one, so the lifting will also be affected. Like it's the same color in the middle, a little blue, but it feels whiter because the surrounding area is darker. Same goes as you go lighter, you'll be able to lift less and less. So you can see you can lift, but this is a very liftable color. That's also a thing. I'll try to lift in this one. And see, I'm not able to lift that well. I can lift all the color that is sitting on the paper, but I cannot lift the stain that it has left already. So it really depends on the color. So you have to make a chart like this for all your colors to test the liftability. One time while they are wet, and then you let them dry, and when they're dry you put more water, and then you test them, like re-wet it and test it, how it lifts after it has dried. Okay, so I have a few examples to show you. Like we talked about the purple. So when I did this one, I was making my purple with a mix of ultramarine and a kind of pink or red. So when I lifted, like I've lifted this area, it's creating a glowy kind of edge because of the surrounding warm color. So all the blue got lifted and the pink stained the paper, so it's not going anywhere. So you see, you have created a light, like I have created a light area here, but it's not completely white. Where I need white, like for example here and here, this place I will not put, like I will not depend on lifting. I will protect my area here because it's okay if I have a tint, I can. But here also, like it's, this one is done in the second layer and this is my first layer. So in my first layer I try to do everything generally lighter than what I would like it to be, so that I'm safe. And this I cannot lift it back, you know, it will look very it'll damage the paper a little bit. So I did this, I lifted gently in the middle, like you can see here, while it was wet, and then I let it dry, and in the second layer I made this part, just this part wet, and emphasized these lines. I did not go for all of it and then lifted it. You lift just once most of the times. If you need to, you can lift twice, but in the same go. You do not lift in every layer that you put in. I'll show you in this paper, because this is not very, it's not a heavy paper. As you can see, it's very thin. It's meant for drawing, but I do watercolors on them, just to, you know, not make everything very precious. So for example, you can see in this one, this lighter part, the yellow part that you can see, even if it's graded, I had to protect it. These, because it has the same tint as the darker part, I can maybe lift it, but I will not always start with lifting. You use lifting when you need to use lifting. You don't, like, it's not a technique, it shouldn't be the first technique you go to. You can lift just in case you need it, you can lift, but it shouldn't be the first thing that you do, because it does damage the paper eventually. So this area I protected and the rest I painted. Now if I want an highlight here also, then I might lift a little bit by rubbing it gently here. But then if I want like a really bright light shining onto this, I will protect it first. Okay, I'll show you a few more. So for example, this one, it's a very rough sketch I did. So as you can also see, this I can lift it by going over it. But if I have to make a green line, it should look fresh, it shouldn't have that brown tint to it, then I will protect it and I will paint negative. Like I've protected this area here, it's all white, and I can put my my green in later. Maybe, see, now I can put in my green very roughly, and it's very fresh. It's not tinted by brown and then it's showing up in my painting. Same goes for everything. Lifting should be used as a tool, not as your primary technique. It can be used as a primary technique also, but there are special cases for that, not for everything. Okay, I lifted here when I needed to, but then like you need to choose your spots. And this is a rough thing I was doing. So I have used lifting here when it was wet, and then I did not touch it. Maybe I went over it like twice, like this. So to make veins in this one as well. And in the first go I lifted, and in the second go I've painted separate sections, like this one separately, then this one, then this one, and this one. So by lifting you just map out everything, and then you emphasize, like for example, this is an area that I lifted. Okay, now if I want to emphasize it even more, like we do in the leaves, so I'll not go like put more paint and then lift again. I will go around the line and paint here. Let me I'll just look for my palette. Okay. So for example, I have to emphasize here. I will not, in the second layer, I will not touch this. The highlight has already been created and it has been mapped out. So what I'll go around it and put darker color. And then with clear water, if I need to make it subtle, I will smoothen it out. Or if I want to add more red, even like I want to make it even darker, then I can add even more paint. See, to emphasize it, I can add even more paint, but around it, and my line should be protected like so. Even if I want to do it on the other side, because sometimes you need to do that for petals and leaves also, like this. So I will go around it and I'll protect my highlight now. And the other stuff I can just blend it out by adding clear water. I can just blend it like so. This is how you have to do it. You can't go over it in every wash and then clean it out. That way you can damage paper, as it must be happening with you, I think, like you told me. So you can avoid that. I use some lifting here, but that too, like it's the same. I did it once and then that's it. Maybe you can go twice as well if you need it. Like do it only if you like really need it. If you can avoid it, it's okay. Here I've lifted just once to make this part lighter. Maybe in some areas here to bring out the teeth, but like do it only when it's necessary. Here I didn't even use lifting. I made shapes. Like I told you, I made shapes. For example, I make this shape here, and then I make the next one next to it, leaving out this vein. And for the middle vein, I can still like do the same thing and make a straight line here, for example. So you have this straight line and you can, you know, work on this edge again. And now in these sections, you can go in, make them darker, do your wet on wet techniques, anything, like treat them separately. Okay, now if they get dry, you can you can go in with water like we did in the second layer of our garlic wine flour. You re-wet the entire area and then introduce some paint in it. So as long as it's wet, I can keep working in it, but if it's drying, I suggest let it dry completely and then come back to it. If you want to create some veins at the same point, like if I want to create some veins in this section, for example, and I want to do it like now, then I can maybe just take a clean brush, nothing in it, just a little bit of water, like that too. I have wiped out everything, it's all barely there. Then I can go in and maybe make some lines and it will lift. And after you've created this, you can just wipe it off and then you can go in again and it will lift. It's not even watercolor paper, and if I can lift in this, you can lift in any paper. See, you can make all the veins that you want. But now if you want to emphasize a certain area, like you want to make it darker, then you have to, like the second time you have to do it, you can't do it darker and then again lift. You have to go in with darker paint and paint around what you've painted already. As you can see here, I paint around it. I paint around everything like I told you in this one as well. I did. See, you can emphasize these areas with more pigment. It's easier to do once they have dried off, but you can also do it when they're slightly wet. Okay, this way you can emphasize if you want, but never like cover everything and then lift again and then cover everything and lift again. That is a bad practice and it will damage your paper eventually. So this is called negative painting, where you don't want to paint the area that you want to highlight, but you paint the area that you don't want to highlight and the lighter area pops up automatically. Okay, this can be done in flowers, leaves, wherever you want. So this is the way to do it. And like I made the big shapes, I painted this entire thing. It's a side of the leaf. So I've done this exactly like this, and when everything dries, I'll show you. When everything dries, then maybe I'll come back and add some tint to the veins. For example, it's not the right color, but whatever. So I save the space for the main vein again, and I make this, and we have this space in the middle, and I can darken it if I like so, or like in whatever space I want the darker color to be, I can darken it. I can work in it as long as it's wet, and you see the amount of water in it is not too much. And now again the same thing, if you want to lift in it, you can just, with barely any water, you can go in and do it, but it should be just done in one layer, most probably the first layer. And also it can only be done in places where you have you can handle a slight tint to your color. Like for example, in this palash flower, I can do a bit of lifting in these areas because even the lighter ones has a slight tint to it. But in this area where the petals are coming out, it's completely white and I don't want to stain it. I want it to be bright white. So I'll not be depending on lifting. I'll protect this area and I'll color outside of it. I will not put any paint on it to lift later. It doesn't work that way. If you don't want it to get stained, you don't put paint on it. Lifting or no lifting, it doesn't make a difference then. Here also it's a texture from a leaf. So if you want your pink to be bright, you cannot just make everything green, then lift it and then put paint on it. If you can handle it to be dull, like there are some plants where you can see green plus brown, there you can do this, because if you overlap these two colors, this pink and this green, then you get something like this or something like this. So if you can risk it mixing, or that's what your subject demands, then you can maybe put everything green, then you can lift it and then add your pink or red whatever over it, and then you can get something like this. So it really depends on what you want. There is no one formula to it. Okay, here in this flower, for example, even in this one, I was not depending on lifting. I can lift if I want some veins to go from here, maybe, I don't know. Right now it's dry, I can try. So let's say for example I want a lighter area here. I can try to rub it off a little bit. See, it has been lifted a little, but it's still pink. So if I want that, I can do that, but then I don't want to depend on it. Like I have lighter area here by applying the paint and protecting this a little lighter. If you want, like if you have no other choice, you can do this. Here for example, this is wet on wet, and this I have done with the damp technique. I controlled the amount of water in my brush and had very thick paint, and then I applied it on very light like lightly wet surface, so it was not too runny. And this is the way you protect your whites. Like here it's completely white, but this is pink and I will not be able to lift it. I cannot, like however I rub it, I cannot make it this white. So every time you need white, you can't. Even in this one, like for example it was a white flower and I put a tint of kind of like purple. There was a blue shadow and an orangey tint to it, so it was kind of a little bit of purple. But then if I want this edge, there is a highlight and a shadow. So if I want this white, I have to protect it. I cannot lift it. It's not possible to lift it and make it like super light. So here also I have protected it, here also I have protected it, and here also I have protected it. And even here you cannot just go everywhere and then try to lift it. This has been painted separately, this has not been lifted. So in one go I did a wash of pink here, and then I let it dry, and then I made this, I painted over it to create this particular shadow. In this one as well, see, I have not depended on lifting, but if I miss out on something, if I need to, then I might use lifting. Like for example, this is a petal which is like rather flat, so I can maybe use a little bit of lifting here so that I can give it a little dimension. But while I'm painting, I'm not depending on everything to be lifted. Here, like you can see in the center, it's green. But then if you put this, the darker green everywhere, it will not be lifted off and it will not have that kind of contrast that you need. So I did lighter areas around it, and then I let it dry and went again with a little more darker pigment, and I made the center darker. I'll give you more examples of this. Like here, I have used lifting for these tiny lines that you see, the petals peeking from inside. These I have lifted, but these have been lifted only because this is a shadow area and there is a lot of pigment into it here, and I could lift all of that pigment. But for now, if I want to create and highlight here, I cannot. It can go a little lighter than what it already is, but it will not be like super light, and I cannot just make it all dark yellow and then I can start lifting. That will not happen. So you have to think in terms of more applying paint, and reduction can come like wherever you need it. So here I needed it to be a little orangish, so I protect this bottom part and I let it run with the green here, and I lifted it so that it has a little tint. As you must have seen in marigold flowers, it's like kind of like a very thin layer is covering the yellow part here. Sometimes that happens. So to create that, I did this. It really depends on what you're doing and what your situation demands. So there is no one formula that works for all. Here I have used lifting, but not in the flower. Like the flower has a certain lighter areas and then the darker areas. So I went in and painted around the petal. I painted this petal with a gradient, like I put yellow, darker yellow here and let it be lighter on the edge. Then I let it dry, and then I start here with darker yellow so that I don't have to do anything. I cannot lift it back because orange will stain the paper, and I've used some orange here on the edge just to create a sharper edge, so I cannot. But in the leaves I could, because even the vein has a certain tint of green to it, so I could, like, I tried to protect it. But then if the paint ran into it, I was not too bothered about it because I knew that I can maybe lift it off. But like for example, you see here there is a volume, this one seems rounded, so this you have to do in one go. Like you apply paint and then you lift it from here, and that's it. You don't touch it again. If it runs back, maybe like once or twice, you can do it again, the same stroke, and then that's it. Middle vein, I suggest you protect it, but lifting is only for the cases where you could not protect it and then you have to lift. Then you can lift. Everywhere, it's everywhere. I have tried to protect my vein, and then wherever I couldn't protect, I lift a little. You can see in this one, see this, I have done this wet on wet. Like here also you can see it's just one wash, like I showed you in the small leafy thing we did in the sketchbook. So this is the first layer, and now if I go again at it, I will just map out this and paint this section, then I map this out and paint just this section, and that way I'll go around the leaf, sorry. Okay, here also lifting went in just the first layer. So in the first layer I applied all the orange. When you're doing a lot of wet on wet and like it runs freely, then you have the chance to like lift it like this, and then you leave it. And in the second layer, you're just emphasizing what you need to emphasize. So maybe you don't need to lift it. If you want and if you need to, then only you do it. It should not be depending on that you'll apply paint everywhere and then you'll lift it. Okay. Here, see, it's Palash, but like I ruined it by making it too orange. And then now if I did it long back, so like even if I try to bring back all the yellow, and also like because it's already ruined, I can be aggressive with it. But if you are working on something, you don't have the courage to be super aggressive. Even if I've done it, I've damaged the paper a little bit. it's okay for me because I am not using this painting, but you will get a texture. So it's not that it cannot be done, because anything can be done. But if you are facing a challenge with the brokenness and the roughness of the paper when you lift, don't do it twice. Just do it like in the first layer, and that's it. From the second layer onwards, we don't depend on lifting it all. Okay. Also, you see here, I could lift a little bit of orange, but that's because I have put a lot of it, and I cannot remove the yellow from this one. So if I try here, I can maybe make it a little lighter, but then there is a limit to it. It's the same for this. It's like I've already tinted my yellow. Like if I put pure yellow, it will remain like it's more beautiful and brighter. And I'll put some orange into it as well. You see here. It's not moving or anything, but even when it runs, it stays clean and it does not become dull like this. It will stay clean. And if I want to make a gradient, I can just go in with clean water and I can touch it, and this way it will create a gradient. See? So the particles should not mix together if you want to keep the color bright. And if you are, even if you are lifting or whatever, if once it's mixed, you can correct it to an extent, but not completely. See, I'm lifting here. But it doesn't give me the same effect. So first you apply paint with care, and then if you need to, you can lift. And if you just lift in wet on wet in the first wash, then only you'll get that soft look and your paper will be protected. And then if you want to add a shadow, you can add a shadow like this in the second layer and it'll look just fine. So don't worry about like that you'll not be able to add contrast or whatever. You can do anything. See, and just with clear water I can make it smooth and it looks like a nice shadow here. But there is a little bit of a damage to the paper. I don't know if it's visible, but there is. I don't mind it in my paintings sometimes, but then if you do, then don't do this. I have more examples to show you. So for this, see, I have painted it in this way that it has highlights and shadows and everything. So I'm not planning in terms of lifting, but if I need to, then I can lift, of course. You saw already what we did in here. We let this purple run into this area just because it was it was lighter purple. Maybe in nature it's completely white, but when you paint, you also consider the reflections around it. So the purple that was surrounding it was also reflecting onto the white, and it was giving a little bit of like purplish, light purplish thing. That's why I have added purple to it, or let the purple run into it. But otherwise there is no need to run it, and you can protect it completely. It's your painting, so you kind of have to like plan everything of what you want to protect, what you want to leave out, and like how much contrast. For example, if I make this edge even more darker, then this area will pop even more as white, and because it has a slight reflection, it will still stay purplish and look very natural, but there will be more contrast, so this will appear more whiter compared to this area. So if I add like this much darkness to this, then it will pop more. So you can do whatever you like, however you want to emphasize a certain area, you can plan your thing according to that. Here is another example. I painted white flowers. So there is already a visibility problem because I'm painting white flowers on white background. Here there is there is no opportunity to lift. You can only apply paint and then leave it just like that. In leaves, I did some lifting. You can see here, and in some places here. This part. But then otherwise it's mostly applying pigment. And in white areas, I just cannot use lifting because there is a very little pigment and I will not be able to lift it at all. Okay, it's not very, like, it was a rough sketch just to understand the color, but you'll get the point. Like here there is almost whitish, greenish, and like a yellow. There is a small quantity of yellow that comes on the side. So it's this kind of thing I was saying, that you have to protect it. You cannot make it all blue and then you can lift it off. Even the center, see where I've lifted and where I protected, it's completely different. Because you want that yellow glow, you have to protect this area. And like, it was a very rough sketch, so I was not very careful about what I want to do and what I'm doing like here. So it was just a color test. So I messed it up here and I tried to lift. Now I cannot make it like this even if I want to. So be very careful about those things. Here also you can see I lifted in the first wash. This is all first wash, and this I was starting to do the second wash. So everything that is in first wash I have lifted and I have mapped. Now in the second wash I will go carefully section by section. Even if it's wet on wet, like I wet this part and then I'll go only in this area, and then I'll wet this area and I'll only go in this area. Even if it looks soft on the edge, that's soft because I've made it soft with clear water, not because I've lifted. In this flower as well, the inside is yellow, so I cannot, like, even if a slight purple gets in, it will become gray when I put the yellow. So I cannot allow any yellow into it, so I have to protect this area completely. But then here you see these highlights, these I can lift. These I have lifted in my first wash. So these are lifted, these are not lifted. Wherever you see a certain roundness, there is some lifting going on, but not in the area that you need. Like you have to think in terms of color. For example, this is yellow and opposite to that is like blues and purples, all of that. So if I put them together, it will make a gray. So it will not look this fresh, kind of like yellowish, creamish kind of a color. And if I want that, I have to protect my area from any purple seeping in. Okay, this as you can see, fainted lines, these, some of them I have lifted in my first layer, and in the second layer with very light color I've made those straight lines like so. So that happened in and as a result you have this kind of a little bit of a dimension to it. Like there are broader lines and then there are smaller lines as well. I'll show you more. You've seen this poppy. These highlights I had to protect and I did not lift here, but these highlights can be light orange, so I did use some lifting here. But like everything you need super light, you have to protect in one go, and then you can maybe so once in the first layer, only in the first layer I lift and create that dimension, and in the second layer I go in and add darker paint. That will give it more of a this kind of look. And if you don't think, like after it's done, if you don't think it's right, then to fix it, maybe you can go in and do a little bit of lifting when it's dry, when it's completely dry. It's the same when we did the tomato. We did all the lifting in the first layer, and in the second layer we just protected our lighter areas and added our darks. This. Here you can see I could lift in my first layer, and then I added my darks. You'll see this everywhere. It's just the first layer that you lift in, like you lift in, and also that too when wherever you want a tinted area, that there only you can lift. Like here, this is popping more, this and this one. So this lighter area, I had to protect it and not put any paint in it, but here I did. So it has more of a purple look, and this has more of a highlight. And this is much duller compared to everything else because of the same thing, because the paint went in and stained it and I could not get it off. And here, as you can see, this petal has a little bit of a dimension, like this part is lighter. This I lifted in the first wash itself. I could lift it. I'll give you more examples. Here, like a part of capsicum, I was lifting while it's wet, and it has like lighter version of the same color, so it's not a problem. Now if I have to do a second layer, I'll apply darker pigment. I'll put water over it, and then I'll just apply darker pigment wherever I need to, and I'll protect everything else. You can do these kind of small exercises also, just to see, you know, how much your pigment is spreading, and you have an idea of like what you do to make it like run less, or maybe like mix a little less. And this will help you in learning about how much water should be there in your brush, how much water should be there in your paper. Maybe on white paper just make wet on wet dots, or maybe make a colored swatch and then put in more pigment, and then this will happen. In this one, as you can see, this pigment, it stains a lot and it doesn't lift that easily. So here there is no lifting in the second layer. Just first layer, I apply, like for example, if this is my petal, first I apply paint here and spread very little amount of my paint here. But if it gets too much here and I want a lighter look, then I lift. So I lift when it's needed, not like I'm planning everything considering lifting. Lifting is only like when something goes out of control, then you lift. Or maybe you plan your first layer in a way where you will lift, and that will map out everything for you to have a better idea of what to do in your second layer. Here also, see, I needed this part to be white in the bottom, so I will protect it. I will not depend on lifting, but here there can be a little bit of a tint, so I can I did not lift it, but I can lift a little bit while it's wet. And then in the second layer I emphasized this side, painting around the middle, painting around like this and like this, so it became lighter, and it's giving a highlight here. In this place also, like you see, in the second layer I just did this, just added this. Maybe in the first layer I lifted a little bit here, but then I let it dry, and it became like a gradient from dark to light. And then in the second layer I put water on it and went in with darker pigment here. So it's really about like you shouldn't depend on lifting mostly. Everything you see here, all the leaves, everything, it's not been lifted. It was lifted in the first go, but not in the second layer. Second layer is just I'm painting around whatever I have lifted. Everywhere you'll see here I mapped out in the first layer, and then in the second layer I have painted negative shapes. For example, here in this one I sectioned this one out and painted this, then I sectioned this one out and I painted this, and like so everywhere. That's it. Let me know if you have any questions. Okay.